Mortal Kombat! Oh wait, no, that's the Space Jam theme.
Y'all ready for this?
So Mortal Kombat 2 is about to start filming, and as long as it's on par with the 2021 reboot,
I'm an orphan from the south side of Chicago.
that'll make it fucking leagues better than Annihilation. That being said, auditions have been leaking faster than the Titanic. Everyone's auditions leaked at this point. Shit, I think my audition leaked. But there's a few things we can learn from these auditions. The first most obvious one is that these characters are going to be in this movie. The second are some of the apparent plot details that we can pull from the dialogue. So let's dive into these auditions and see what we can learn, yeah? Full disclosure, I'm going to butcher a lot of these actors' names. By like a lot. Sorry, am dumb American. But let's start simple, with just an image of an audition. Now, we aren't definitively sure what role actor Yoshi Sudarso auditioned for, because his video wasn't leaked. But from what I could gather, he apparently auditioned for the role of Kuai Liang, aka Sub-Zero's brother, Sub-Zero. And that's pretty much all I could find out. Honestly, I'm not entirely sure how people concluded that this was an audition for Mortal Kombat. But this could be an audition for a fucking Pepsi commercial for all I know. But let's move on to some of the auditions that had leaked video. And right off the bat, because I waited just so fucking long to make this video, I had an extremely hard time finding 2 out of 4 of these auditions. That being Rob Kipple-Williams' audition for Shao Khan and Arowinda Kurana's audition for Jade. I tried reaching out to this guy's channel because I know he has them, but he just ignored me. I mean, which is fine, this is whatever. I mean, I'm used to being ignored. I'm not fucking bitter. So when it comes to those specific auditions, I don't have the best quality video for you. Now, one universal note that should be said is that everyone is apparently speaking to Katana in their audition, except for one scene. No word yet if Katana will be played by the same actress as Melina, but I'm assuming she won't based on absolutely nothing. But up first we have Aisha Aidara's audition for Sindel, and the first thing you'll notice is her age, or lack thereof, which is why some people actually think she may be auditioning for Jade instead, but I'll come back to that point towards the end of the video. But for now, let's just assume she's auditioning for Sindel, as most people covering this have her listed. That would mean they're casting a very young actress to play Sindel. I mean, she looks less like Katana's mother and more like Katana's fucking sister. I mean, it's possible they're trying to play up the whole Adenian's long lifespan kind of angle, I guess. But the scene in question is seemingly when Sindel decides to commit suicide. So if you don't know, Sindel does in fact commit suicide.
I can't believe you committed suicide. I cannot believe you committed suicide. How could you have done this? How could you have committed suicide?
And by the time she's introduced for the first time in Mortal Kombat 3, we're fighting her resurrected undead corpse. That is until Aftermath retconned the whole suicide angle. It was just fucking Aftermath. Now, in this scene, she is given poison by Katana, but not before giving her a palm reading and seeing into the future?
Give me your hands.
Don't have much time.
Your hands, please.
What do you see?
A barbarian who cannot die. A gardener among the flames. And a princess who carries the fate of 3 realms on her shoulders.
So if this is an audition for Sindel, this is a fucking new power she's never had. I think this is why there's a little bit of confusion as to what role she's auditioning for, but again, we'll come back to this towards the end of the video. But I will say the Sindel theory really starts falling apart when she begins referring to Katana as my princess.
Goodbye, my princess.
I mean, if this were an audition for Sindel, you would think she would be saying something like my daughter, or
too bad you will die.
But up next we have Arowinda Kurana's audition for Jade, who has 2 scenes. The first is a confrontation with Katana about what I can assume is Sindel's questionable death. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't find this specific scene, so I'm kind of going off what I can remember from seeing it a couple weeks back. But she says to Katana, "It wasn't a heart attack, it was you," which would line up with the previous audition where it seems like Katana gave Sindel poison. So in the games, Jade as a character has never really had a consistent alignment. I mean, for the most part, she's depicted as a good guy, but sometimes she'll just be a bad guy. So it would seem she's being written as a character who's struggling who to side with, telling Katana, "You're asking me to choose between my best friend and my honor." Now, her soft demeanor is contrasted by her other scene, which tells me Jade only really shows this side to Katana. Katana, because in her next scene she comes across as less emotional and more bitter. And this is the one scene where a character isn't speaking to Katana. In fact, it is very unclear who she is speaking to. I've watched this a few times, and from what I could gather, when Jade enters the scene, she sees somebody sitting on Shao Kahn's throne.
Keeping the seat warm.
And whoever is in this scene with her calls into question her loyalty.
Raiden has sent his last warriors to Netherrealm. He's making a play for the amulet.
Send me down there. I'll handle the amulet. You take care of Raiden.
I would think your loyalties would be with your princess.
Katana made her choice. And I'm making mine.
So you'll notice there was mention of an amulet. This has many people theorizing she is referring to Shinnok's amulet, which has been a vital fucking plot device ever since it was introduced in Mortal Kombat mythologies, and was even shown in the 2021 reboot. So it seems like it's going to play an integral part in this movie, which if that's the case, I'm a little fucking nervous, because the tournament itself may not play a big part of the movie, or at the least may not be the focus. Because balancing Shao Kahn's tournament with Shinnok's bullshit was so well received in Battle of the Realms. So who could she be speaking to in this scene? Well, obviously someone with big enough balls to be sitting on Shao Kahn's throne. And theories range from Noob Saibot to Quan Chi. I mean, your guess is as good as mine in this case, so drop who you think she might be talking to in the comments.
Now, do you want to sit around and talk? Or do you want to win?
Oh, I like you.
I like her.
And lastly, we have two actors auditioning for the big dick Shao Khan. Shao Khan has two scenes. The first scene is one where Katana is caught sneaking out and attempts to play it off like she's going to temple to pray. The second is a scene where Katana is being interrogated, where we get the biggest details about this movie. So first up to bat is Rob Kippa Williams. And maybe it's the beard and hair, but I get like serious Khal Drogo vibes from his performance. Anyways, this actor's performance really shines in his second scene.
So what punishment befits a wayward princess? Perhaps your mother might have another accident.
No.
I'll ask you again. Where did you go and who did you meet?
Stop it.
Where did you go and who did you meet?
Please.
Last chance, child. Where did
Earthrealm. I went to Earthrealm.
Now, what cast a monkey wrench into the Sindel video is that Shao Kahn appears to be threatening Katana with Sindel's life, which wouldn't make a whole lot of sense if she poisoned herself in that previous scene. Now, I really wish I could have found a better quality version of his audition, but since I couldn't, we're gonna save the big plot revelations for the next audition from Scott Connors.
Being an emperor is no easy thing. The people need us. They need guidance, discipline, a strong hand at the helm. We spare them the weight of making their own choices. But that's also why they hate us. We are the mirror that reflects their own howling insignificance.
And I'd just like to state, it's pretty fascinating watching these actors' completely different takes on this character. I mean, clearly they were given a brief description of Shao Kahn as a character, with what I could only assume are things like self-proclaimed emperor, conqueror of realms, steals kids' quarters, and seeing these actors interpret this info in two completely different ways. Whereas Rob Kippa Williams' take on Shao was much more barbaric and came across as someone who slaughtered his way to the top, Scott Connors' take on Shao is much more regal and interprets the character as a more methodical, well-spoken tyrant.
So, what punishment befits a wayward princess? Perhaps your mother should have another accident.
No.
I'll ask you again. Where did you go, and who did you meet?
Stop it.
Where did you go, and who did you meet?
Please.
Last chance, child. Where did you go?
Earthrealm.
Which is an interesting take on Shao Kahn, considering he's never been depicted like this. I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I mean, it's just different from the usual.
I am Khan of Outworld.
Vacate my throne, or I'll soak these sands with your blood.
Giant bloodthirsty meathead that we usually get. Now I will say it was a bold choice to show up for the audition in full-blown Dom Toretto cosplay, but I think my biggest issue with Scott Connors is that he looks like a 4-year-old went through an instant growth machine. Full disclosure, I totally stole that joke from Corey from Big Dumb Movie. He can have it back when he returns my brick-top babysitter joke from Three Ninjas. But let's get into the big plot details that we learn from this scene.
Now you see. Kung Lao wasn't the only one we brought back.
Bai Han, I have been reborn, the shadow of the Emperor.
I've known every step of your plan. The rabbits are walking right into the snare. All thanks to you.
So this doesn't surprise me at all. If you listen to the podcast I did with Big Dumb Movie on the 2021 reboot, you'll know that I picked up on a lot of Noob Saibot foreshadowing. You get it? Shadow. Now it also doesn't surprise me that he isn't being referred to as Noob Saibot, and instead is just referred to as Bi-Han. I mean, feel free to correct me, but I feel like I can recall an interview over the years with Ed Boon suggesting that if they had known that this character was going to become as popular and as integral to Sub-Zero's mythology, that they would have named him something other than Ed and John's last name spelled backwards. But not only that, it seems as though Kung Lao is set to return as well. Now I think this is the biggest clue as to what we should expect to see in the sequel. I mean, at least in the games, Quan Chi was the only one that had the power of resurrection, which always differentiated him from Shang Tsung as sorcerers. Quan Chi was more of a necromancer and was covetous of Shang's ability to steal souls. Furthermore, Noob Saibot is so intrinsically tied with Quan and Shinnok, being as they were introduced in his solo game. So unless they decide to change this necromancy detail and make Shang Tsung responsible for resurrecting everybody, it really does seem like we're getting Quan Chi at the very least, especially considering the mention of an amulet in Jade scene. I'm not gonna lie, as much as I want Quan and Shinnok to finally receive proper live-action adaptations, I'm a little fucking nervous that this is all going to be in the same movie as Liu Kang's revenge on Shang Tsung, the introduction of Johnny Cage, the very likely Johnny Cage and Sonya Blade falling in love subplot, the very likely subplot of Liu Kang and Katana falling in love, Kuai Liang's revelation of what became of Bi-Han, the introduction of Shao Khan, the actual tournament itself, whatever the fuck Cole Young does in this movie, and that none of these ideas are given enough screen time to be properly fleshed out. Remember Battle of the Realms, everybody? Let's just hope they don't also decide to throw in the cyberization of the Lin Kuei on top of all of this shit. But let's go back to the original audition. So you'll notice both auditions for Shao Kahn had the actors reading the exact same lines, as is usually the case when it comes to this kind of thing. I mean, it just makes it easier to compare the performances if they're given the same material. Makes sense, right? So if Aisha Aidara was auditioning for Jade, she would be reading the exact same lines as Arawinda Kurana. And the fact that she isn't is pretty obvious to me that she isn't auditioning for Jade. I mean, I'm not convinced she's auditioning for Sindel either, though, because seeing into the future is something that neither Jade or Sindel can do. So who knows, maybe she's just auditioning for an Oracle character of some sort. Update! It was confirmed as of yesterday that Tati Gabrielle was cast as Jade, making her the second official new cast member alongside Carl Urban being cast as Johnny Cage. But to close this video out, I wish all of these actors the best of luck. And in case Scott Connors watches this, I'm sorry I said you look like a 4-year-old who went through an instant growth machine. Please don't hurt me, I'm very small. You should go after Corey from Big Dumb Movie. It was his joke. No, not the hammer!